Looks like we're live. All righty. Get some water in me real quick. I don't know what the exact temperature was here in Oklahoma today. It was warm. It was very, 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 very warm. It was like not springtime weather warm. It was heading in towards summer warm today. So I did a lot of sweating. I got a lot of dahlias planted today. I got some more. Let's see, what did I plant? I planted some pink soba buckwheat today. That was fun. Yesterday, for the people that were watching on Gail's live stream, I described the flowers that I was planting yesterday, which were 3 different new varieties of dahlia, which is an edible flower with an edible tuber, which is kind of cool, and 2 new varieties of daylily. Well, they're new to me, so I was planting those yesterday. And we continued on in the same vein today, just more stuff. It's spring, and I'm busy. So let's see who's here. We got Stray Kitten. We got Mary is Tulsa Fox. We got Mary, which is the same person. Vicky Savage with many blessings. Oklahoma Chicken Cam stopping in and saying hi. And Ken, of course, in here very, very early. How is everybody doing tonight? Moonsprout, Sassafras. Hi. Okay, everybody's getting back from the commercial break. Oh my goodness. I'm just, if I do see me drinking a lot, I lost a lot of fluids today. Hot workout there. So slowly over the past couple of months, you guys can't smell this, but I'll hold it up to the camera. This is our, it's starting to look a little bit wilty. This is a little sprig of mint that we just picked. And I'm just enjoying that smell because we've got fresh mint again. And we featured our mint and some tricks for propagating mint. What you've got to establish. It is really super easy to propagate. All you really need is to dig up some of that mint rhizome that's alive and just cut little snips of it, bury it in the spot where you want a new colony of mint to take over, and it should take over. If anything, keeping mint is more a question of keeping it in check than having enough to spread around. But as a potential rodent deterrent, I figured we wanted to spread some more mint around. So I spread some mint along with the tubers, just in case the gophers and the pack rats and everything else like to eat dahlias. I don't know if they like to eat dahlias or not, but I'm not taking any chances. So I'm putting that stuff out there. Hopefully it'll stop them from investigating too far. Mary's calling me a mint head. Oh yeah, busy day, busier weekend. Oh yeah, it's on. Springtime is on. Go. It's not quite time for us to take our transplants out yet because there's still that possibility that we're going to get one more frost. Probably not, but it's pretty much coming. We're getting ready to have some rain events over the next couple of days, and they're saying maybe 3 or 4 inches. Who knows? I'd say bring it on. I'm ready. I've got my trenches dug out there in the garden. They're packed with wood chips, so we're ready to receive that rain and ready to start storing it up so that we have water in the ground for the dry season that will be coming. Now, this is the picture I've got behind me is that picture I found for a thumbnail, and I don't know exactly where this is. I kind of move out of the way so you can see those flowers back behind me. But you might recognize those flowers because I have the same flowers growing in my yard. Those are canna. They're a hybrid version that has that nice big orange flower with a little bit of yellow on the side. The one that doesn't really taste like much of anything except for your salad dressing, but it's really good in a salad. We have those same kind of canna. So I'm wondering if these were planted deliberately by somebody or if they were naturally there in this landscape and they were naturally hybridized. So I put in an inquiry to the person that took the picture. They haven't responded back yet, so tell me where they took the picture at. But, I've got weird stuff going on with my green screen behind me. Can you see that? All right. It just keeps rippling there in one spot like an alien trying to come in from the bush. There we go. expecting a 7-foot tall man with dreadlocks to come stepping out of the screen any moment. All right. All right, everybody saying hi to everybody. Got heterodox in here. Mint doesn't phase your local rodents. Oh no, I'm worried about that. What if it doesn't do anything? What if the daffodils don't deter them? What if the mint doesn't deter them? What if, I don't know. Maybe I just have to plant a whole bunch of stuff and get around the rodents. But tonight, we're going to talk about the things that we've been doing wrong as human beings for the past 7,000 or 8,000 years, it looks like. Can you imagine a spacecraft comes in and lands on planet Earth, and a guy steps out and walks out and looks around and goes, "Hi." We look up and go, "Hi," and he says, "So this is Earth, huh? I've heard about this place." You go, "Yeah. Do you want us to take you to our leader or something?" The alien looks at us kind of thing and goes, "Hey, what's this leader that you're talking about?" And we proceed to try to tell this alien from another world how it is that here on planet Earth we have these organized groups of people that are in charge. They have weapons, and they'll use them against us if we don't do things that they like. And the reason that we have them is to protect us from organized groups of people that have weapons that will hurt us if we don't do the things that they like. But every couple of years, they allow us to come out and participate in a ritual where we get to choose who runs the organization with the weapons that will hurt us if we don't do things that they like. And the alien just doesn't quite understand what's going on. She says, "Well, I don't understand. Why? If somebody else does this, you call them criminals, and you wouldn't dream of doing what they say, unless, of course, you're in fear for your life. You're just doing what the nice robber says. Why do you do it whenever these people do?" Well, this is the system that we have. Mary used to tell me a story about Christmases and in-laws and family traditions, and how every year, whenever the kids, this was her, like her mother's family, she'll correct me in a moment. So every year, the grandmother, or the mother at that time, would prepare the Christmas ham, and she cut the ends off the ham. She put it in the pan. She put the glaze on it and put it in the oven, and she roast it for a certain amount of time. And the kids paid attention. You take the ham, you get the pan, you grease up the pan a little bit. You cut the ends off the ham, you put it into the pan, you put the glaze on it, and you put it in the oven, and it comes out, and then you slice it up, and that's the Christmas ham. So she grows up, and it comes time for her to start making the Christmas ham. So she takes her pan, she sets it out, she greases it up, she gets the ham, she puts it on the counter, she cuts the ends off the ham, she puts it in the pan, and she glazes the ham and puts everything on there, roasts it, comes out. It's beautiful. And the husband looks over and says, "Honey, yes, dear, why do you cut the ends off the ham?" He says, "Well, that's the way we do it." He says, "Well, I don't understand why you do it. You've got the ends are cut off the ham, the ham's in the pan, and there's all this room in the pan. You could have left the ends on the ham." He says, "Well, now that I come to think of it, I think my mother's pan was a bit smaller, and she had to cut off the ends of the ham to get it into the pan. So as a result, she's been preparing the Christmas ham, or she started to prepare the Christmas ham in the same way that she saw her mother doing it, but the circumstances are entirely different. And there was no need for her to cut the ends off the ham the way her mother did it. But that's just another example of, this is the system that we have. This is what was already here. And instead of saying, well, maybe we could do something better, like maybe our ancestors did once upon a time when they realized it wasn't really working out for them, we go, well, this is what we've got, and we just have to live with it. We just have to put up with it. Yeah, let's do that. Although for the past 6,000 or 7,000 years, this idea of having the armed people in charge tell us what to do and hurt us if we don't do what they say, and accepting that as normal, it's never worked out well for us, typically it winds up with us sending our sons and daughters off to fight in wars that have no real meaning and die for no good purpose, and destroy perfectly beautiful things and useful things, and cause bad sentiments in between people that have no need to have bad sentiments in between them in the first place. Generally, it's overall destruction and thievery, and it has been from day one. And we should probably find a better way of organizing our civilization. Maybe we had a better system once upon a time, back whenever the world was young and green, and we had yet to learn how to till the soil. We were still living as a horticultural people. Maybe. Maybe that's something we've been doing wrong for a long time. And the question is, how in the world are we going to go about correcting it? How do I take this idea that we need to change the way we organize our civilizations, change the way we do everything from our food systems to really a lot of our interpersonal relationships, our community relationships, and our larger community relationships in between groups of people with geographical boundaries. All of this stuff, we've been doing this just all wrong this entire time. Not long ago, and I'm sure many of you who watch this channel have seen the commercials, not my commercials, of course, commercials for Daily Wire and Jeremy Boring's razors and Jeremy's chocolate marketing campaign. Have you guys seen these commercials at all? Okay. Really, really brilliant. He sees a situation where you have some company that's going for a high ESG score, doing silly things and alienating its customer base. And it says, hey, well, obviously they don't want your money, but I do. I'll make razors and sell them to you. I'll make chocolate and sell it to you. And I looked up the cost of Jeremy's chocolate, because Hershey chocolate, Hershey, they created a sort of a woke chocolate bar, and Jeremy's was getting back at us. Now we're going to produce two types of chocolate bar. We've got he, him, and she, her. One of them has nuts. Which was kind of funny, but responding to this particular marketing strategy, somebody says, it's overpriced chocolate, changed my mind. And I was like, challenge accepted, because I've noticed something. I've noticed that first off, Jeremy is not even really selling chocolate. I mean, yes, if you order chocolate from his website, he will send you the chocolate that you order. If you order, I think it's a 24 bars of chocolate, it's like $100, and he'll cover shipping. So right around $4 a bar, $5 a bar, $4 a bar, right around $4 a bar. That's kind of pricey a bit, but think about what it is that you're buying. Most of the people that are going to buy this bar of chocolate are not going to buy a bar of chocolate and eat the bar of chocolate. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to get one bar of chocolate and go, look what I got, right? And maybe they're going to get two. They're going to have both kinds, the one with nuts and one without. The one's got nuts. Can you guess which one it is? Well, they put with nuts and nutless on the wrapper, so it kind of defeats the gag there. But the thing that the people are buying is not really a chocolate bar. It's that ability to say, hey, look what I got. Look, I get to tell this company, I don't have to buy your product. I can buy it from somebody else that actually wants to sell to me and not make this weird thing that I don't agree with and don't want to follow along with. That's what he's selling. And to the people that buy that, now that I think about it, I think, yeah, they are getting their money's worth. And I'll explain it this way. Probably about 30 years ago or so, there was a company. I can't remember the name of the company off the top of my head. I'm sorry. It was probably a subsidiary of some other company in the beverage industry that was making these little bottled drinks that was mostly like filtered pear juice or white grape juice or something like that, with a couple other flavors added. A little mango, a little pineapple and stuff like that, and to blend it up to make it interesting. And this is a very, very, it's getting kind of dark here. Let me turn the lights on here. There we go. Oh, that's it. So this is a very, very simple and cheap drink. It's good on a hot day. It'll quench your thirst, and it's not bad for you. I mean, it is fruit juice. But they marketed this that whenever you purchased one of these bottles, and they're maybe 12, 14 ounces, they're not all that big, they would donate $1 to one of the um, rainforest preservation charitable organizations, rainforest preservation charities. I don't recall which one, but the idea is you donate the money to them. They take that money and they purchase rainforest land and put it in trusts so that it won't get developed, so it'll stay nice and pristine and pretty, and that's great. And I recall while I was going by the convenience store every day during that particular year, I would buy one of those every day and I'd drink it because I needed something to drink, and it was refreshing and it wasn't bad, and I felt good about where that money was going, even though I'm paying an extra $1 for a really cheap drink. The idea that now part of my money, because I made this purchase, is going to go to a cause that I care about, or that makes me feel good. That's part of what I'm purchasing, and it's to a certain extent. A lot of products are that way. You're not necessarily buying the physical product. You're buying a sense. You're buying an experience. You're buying a service, that sort of thing. Understanding this concept in marketing is kind of crucial to what I'm trying to get around it with in terms of we've been doing it wrong. For the longest time, we've known that hunters and fishermen are the best conservationists. They're the people that have a vested interest in making sure that the animals that they are interested in pursuing in their sport remain alive, remain vibrant, remain thriving, perhaps even growing and expanding in number. They're deeply and keenly interested in conservation because that's where their passion lies. They're invested in it. But a conservation project like, hey, we want you to donate some money to help preserve the rainforest. Would you be willing to consider donating some money to save the rainforest? If you put the super chat in right now, this is hypothetical. I'm not saying I'm going to do this. If you put the super chat in right now, 50% of everything you put in is going to go to the rainforest. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, do the fundraiser bit, right? Okay. This does not get the kind of response that can be obtained if I approach the problem a little differently. So instead of trying to sell you the idea on giving up some of your treasure in order to preserve a piece of land that you're probably never going to physically see, that you personally don't have any investment in other than a nebulous, hey, I coughed up $50,000 over the past 40 years for rainforest preservation, but I have not one single square inch of rainforest that I can go and stand on and say, I preserve this. That's kind of disheartening. People don't really want to get involved in that project. You have to really, really believe in it to be willing to reach into your pocket and pull out the money and start shelling out the cash for this thing, right? Yet, here's Jeremy Boring, not interested at all in selling razors and not interested at all in selling chocolate, but creates a marketing sensation because he's selling what people do want. He's found the value. He's found a way to apply a value to this physical object and give it to you here. But the physical value, or the value that you're getting from this physical object whenever you purchase it, goes well beyond that physical object. Just like me buying that bottle of fruit drink back 30 years ago, right? I think this is kind of what we need to be doing in these areas. If I want to build up our world's forest systems, instead of trying to get people to donate money to the cause to help preserve forests or plant more parks or any of that, I'm not going to do that. Instead, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sell you the value of a plant that you can plant in your yard that's going to look beautiful in your yard. It's going to require very, very little or almost no effort on your part to keep and grow this plant. And whenever you have need of food, all you need to do is go to this plant, harvest, and then replant and spread your plant because it's multiplied now. I can sell you that plant I can sell you other plants that are like that, where you can build a forest system for yourself, one that's suitable to your climate, one that you can look out your window every day and see, one that you can walk out into and enjoy, one that you're a part of, one that you're invested in. If I can sell you that instead of donate money to save the rainforest, I don't have to worry about what's going to happen to the rainforest, because we'll be planting hundreds of them if we can sell that idea. So we're going to be selling it in the terms of, how is this beneficial and profitable for me? What's the selfish motivation that I have for wanting to invest in this sort of thing? It's all about what's good for me. Or in the case of the person that's on the receiving end of this sales, it's all about what's good for you. Having a stable supply of food that you can rely upon when everything else fails. That's a wonderful sensation to know that I've got roots in the ground right now that I can go and I can dig it up, and that's days, weeks, months of food right there. And it's a variety of different things. It's not just one thing. Edgar Duck says, "Are you sure?" Oh wow, look at this. Sounds like a challenge to kill almost everything, even Turkish rocket and rhubarb. Wow. I have managed to actually kill a Turkish rocket plant myself. So it can be done. It was not easy, but I did it. Actually, I had help. The place where I planted it was getting dug up in the middle of a drought during the summer, and I had to relocate it. It didn't make the relocation. Anyway, here, yeah, Oklahoma Chicken Camp saying it exactly. Enlightened self-interest is a good thing. This is incidentally some of the original idea behind the way the United States of America was set up, was the concept of enlightened self-interest. During the initial phases of this country, there was no central federal authority. There was no real federal government to speak of whatsoever. There were 13 colonies. Each of those colonies was independent, and they formed a union together of 13 colonies. It was a confederation. It's oddly enough, I talk about this enough, but this was the original idea, was a confederation. And in this confederation, people did have the right to vote. Now, this is interesting. They like to talk about the founding fathers and how they're all old white men and slaveholders. And interestingly enough, in the country's original constitution, if you were a property owner and you were a black man, you were voting. So with the coup of 1787 and the removal of the power from the people, giving it to a centralized federal authority instead, with that new constitution, we took several steps backwards in our social development. Anyway, I was getting off on a tangent. Because I remember begging my elders for stories of back when, if you were willing to talk about the Depression. I got a lot of really great stories from my grandmother. And she was born in 1708, which is interesting because 1708 is also right around the year that Oklahoma became a state. But she wasn't born in Oklahoma. She was born in Kansas. This was southeast Kansas. Right following after the Depression, or right around the Depression and into the Dust Bowl era. That's whenever she was a young woman and met my grandfather. So exciting times. She grew up in a sod hut, or a sod house on the prairie, of all things. And my grandmother grew up in a sod house. And I'm sitting here with high-speed cable internet, electric lights, remote controlled electric lights, of all things. Yes, my grandmother grew up in a sod hut. It's true. She got her water out of a well that they drew up out of the well with a bucket. Eight, 1908. 1908. Remember, this is Oklahoma did not even become a state until I think 1907. 1907, 1908. That was right whenever Oklahoma became a state. And this was prairie and pioneer area out here. And this was the Wild West, and it was not long ago that it was the Wild West, which is kind of funny. That was my grandmother that was living in a sod hut, a sod house. Whenever she was born, she was born and grew up in it. The time she met my grandfather, they had invented houses. But these ancestors of ours, they were not worried about. Well, I mean, they would worry about where the next meal was coming from, but they weren't so completely and totally dependent upon a monetary system for everything. I can't help but think of that Rudyard Kipling poem, right? About although we had plenty of money, there was nothing our money could buy. Greg, I think it was last night, Greg Allison and Green Greggs was pointing out that the M2 money supply has dipped into areas that typically signal depression. So we may be having a depression. Yay, cheers. Yep. Sod houses are amazingly well insulated. They're still amazingly well insulated, but they drop bugs on everything. Which is, of course, the reason why people would have canopy beds. Thatch roofs would drop bugs too. '59, my whole childhood. There we go. Yeah, Salina, Kansas. That's not too far from where they were at. They were actually closer to Coffeyville. Spam's gonna make a comeback, you think? Something. We got Bittner Tinkers in from Texas. Howdy, howdy. You're here to find out everything that we've been doing wrong. But it's not just concepts like conservation that we've been trying to approach in the wrong way. Instead of trying to sell people the idea of charity, we need to try to show people how it's of benefit to them. Katie Moore's in the house. Hi. Oh my goodness. I'm drinking Tang. Oh, that almost went down the wrong pipe. All right. Trying to get my electrolytes back up from sweating like a dog all day planting flowers. Got 2 kids, huh? All right. Things we're doing wrong. Dogs don't sweat. True. If I was doing this, will you sweating like a dog? Look, I'm out of tongue line. My tongue got orange. All right. Bye, Katie. Okay, I'll catch you on the replay. I'm hoping I can get some of this AC on me here, but it's not blowing this way. We're cooking. Pardon me while I catch my breath. Mary is asking if those are packages. Let me see. Back behind there. Hang on. We're having an equipment malfunction. There we go. Shoot. Are they packages? If I'm not careful, the AC, the wind will blow and it'll tip everything over. All right, let me see. No, those are not packages. That's a cardboard box. It does not have any packaged stuff in it. It is, in fact, the trimmings from the last daylily order that I filled. Yeah, let's see. There we go. Oh, too far. There we go. So the last daylily order I filled, because it was very cold out, I got everything dug out. I got them in the water with my waterproof gloves on, swished them around to get the dirt out, separated everything out as much as I could, take the little stuff that I need to put back in to grow some more, and then trimmed up everything. Well, I started to trim up everything, and I realized it's really cold outside, so I just brought it all in, and I did the trimming into the box, and the box is still here, and I haven't taken the box back out yet. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. By golly. Here's Billy with a good answer. Pigs use mud. They're smart. Pigs are very smart. Mud's a good way to stay cool. If you make your house out of mud, your house will stay cool. Okay. So, we've been doing things wrong. This system that we have, where we have people with guns threaten us with violence unless we give them money. And then they take that money and they spend it on the things that they want to spend it on. And occasionally we get together and tell them what we would like them to spend it on, and they ignore us and spend it on what they want to spend on instead. Yeah, that system sucks. Let's not do that system anymore. Let's do something else. How about instead, if there's something I care about, like building houses for people that need houses, how about I take my money, and instead of giving it to the guy with the gun that will hurt me if I don't give him money because he asked for it, instead of giving him the money, I take that money and I give it to a group like Habitat for Humanity that's going to build houses for people that need houses. Or maybe start up a GoFundMe page that will provide this particular service, purchasing distressed properties, flipping them, and then turning them over to first-time homeowners that couldn't otherwise get a loan for whatever reason. Some sort of charitable organization like that I get involved in, that I spend my money on, that I spend my time on, and that I believe in. And then if there are other people that also believe in this, we kind of get together and we go, we're going to make sure this happens in our community, in our neighborhood, around the world, wherever it happens. And we can do that because we didn't give this money to the guy with the gun that was going to hurt us unless we gave him the money, because we understood this guy is a thief. And although he says he's going to take that money and spend some of it on some of the things that we want, we know for certain he's going to spend the rest of it on things that we don't want. He's even going to spend it on things that we really don't want, that we're really opposed to. But that's called compromise, and it's politics. So instead of giving the money to politicians, we should be giving the money to where we want it to go. If I want to see a border built on the southern border of the United States of America, between the U.S. and Mexico, what do we need to make that happen? Well, we need money for materials. We need crews to go out there and do the building. Once again, I can take the money out of my pocket and go, okay, we're going to start up this foundation that's going to build wall. We're going to build so much wall from here to here, and we'll fund this part of the wall with donations from the public that want to see this wall get built. Here's the GoFundMe. You can give your money to this project. We get enough money together, and we have enough money to build this wall, right? You get your border wall that you want because you were willing to pay for it. Not because you were willing to talk somebody into pointing a gun at somebody else's head and making them pay for it. That's evil. That's wrong. That's completely and totally wrong. Yeah, you can say the wall is dumb, but if somebody wants to spend their time and money building it, hey, more power to it. That's a job for somebody that needed a job. But threatening other people with violence unless you get your way, whenever you can just as easily stand up for yourself and invest in the things that you believe in instead, is evil and it's stupid. And we need to quit doing it. All right. Moving on. Barry is saying, wall off DC. See, there we go. Now, in order to make this happen, we would have to purchase properties around the District of Columbia, right? We would have or get an agreement from the people that own the properties around the District of Columbia, and then invest the money, build the wall, raise the wall around DC. There we go. It absolutely we could do it. The politicians are like, what's going on? We're building a wall. If you want to come into our country, we're going to require a passport. You've got District of Columbia. That's your country. I think you call it the United States of America. It's a constitutional republic. And over here, outside the wall, we have the United States of America, as constituted back in 1781 and recognized by the English government of the time as its own rightful nation before it got overthrown back in 1787. And then England didn't really feel like honoring that treaty anymore because the country that made the treaty with didn't exist anymore. That's why the War of 1812 happened, in case you guys kind of missed that bit in American history. Like, why in the world, after so many years, did King George turn around to come back to the colonies to start trying to take them back again? What in the world happened? Well, the thing that happened was the country that King George signed the treaty with ceased to exist. And so there was no treaty between that country or between England and this country at the time. Actually, I didn't even, well, yeah, I think we did. With the end of the war in 1812, there was a renewal of the treaty under the new government in the new country. But that's the reason why the War of 1812 happened, because the United States was not the United States anymore, or at least not the one that England had signed the cessation of hostilities with. See, there you go. I donate to Wall Off DC. So this thing that I noticed that Jeremy was doing, and then I noticed also this the company that was doing the rainforest charity is getting people involved and putting their money where their mouth is, instead of trying to sell people on the charity idea. We give you something that you want. Now, granted, yes, chances are people are not going to be eating the bar of chocolate. But in any case, what is being sold here is that experience and idea, the feel that the person wants to be a part of something. It's this deep need that they have, much more than digital ones and zeros that are practically meaningless. Hi, kitty. Do you want food? What will you do for food? Will you catch mice for food? You're just going to look off in the other direction. Okay, we've got little Suzukins with us today. The big cat, Sarge, he went back outside. It's not freezing anymore, so he can be outside. Besides which, he likes to sneak into Suzu's room and try to steal her kitty food. And they got in a scrap. So Sarge had to get booted out. He got kicked off the island for being violent. Oh. Billy's saying, average person or young working adult cannot actually afford to live anywhere here in the USA. Never mind compile bills on top of them, plus tuition debts, credit card, all that stuff. Yeah. Especially not in California. Whenever I got out of the Navy, I was stationed in California. I got out and was like, okay, I'm not even going to spend one night here. I'm getting on the bus and I'm heading back to the middle of the country where people are remotely sane, because it's just crazy and way too expensive out there. It's expensive to be poor out here. And I really wanted to get that sort of lifestyle where whether I had money or not didn't really matter. Because for thousands and thousands of years, humans didn't have money. It's not necessary for life. What's necessary for life? It's clean air, it's sunshine, fresh water, food to eat, something to keep you warm whenever it's cold out, some way to keep cool when it's hot out, possibly some pleasant company. You don't need money. But the modern world has made it so. There's an idea for education. There's some that lick paint chips and others that study. Here's lawn darts back to weed out the stupid. Okay, well, once upon a time, this is we've gotten away from doing things that worked. And if we look at our history, we know that there are things that worked in the past, right? Once upon a time, there were people that were raising megalithic stone structures using horticulture to do it. They weren't using agriculture to do it. You can't grow enough food to feed that population for a long enough time to do the work they were doing. But we got away from that. Started growing grains and stuff, having health problems. Once upon a time, if you wanted to have an education for your children, you would have to hire a tutor. Or if you were in a community, you could, as a community, take turns with the task of teaching. You could teach your own children, or you could hire a teacher. Lots of communities would hire teachers. A teacher was a valuable profession back in those days. Back in those days, a doctor was a valuable profession to be in. Not that you made a lot of money as a teacher or a doctor, but your position in your community was such that there was almost nothing that you would need from the community that the community would not find a way to provide for you. That's the kind of thing that really you can't buy with money. I think if we were to return to having to come up with tuition money for our children, ourselves, parents, that is, or children that want to continue their education beyond, okay, we learn how to read, write, we learn how to read, write, and cipher. We got that down. There's the library over yonder. I know how to read, write, and cipher. I can get in there. I can learn me everything I need to learn. Now that I know how to read, write, and cipher. If a child wants to continue their education beyond the point that their parents were willing to pay for, to that point, then they can go out, they can get a job, they can work, they can get the money, they can come back, they can give that money to their tutor or the teacher for the education that they're going to be getting, or if they're going to a school, to the school for the education that they're going to be getting. I can guarantee you that those children that are working to pay for their education are not going to be disruptive in class. I bet they're going to be paying close attention. They're going to be studying. They're going to be diligent. If there's homework, chances are they're probably going to do it, unless, of course, they've already got a fairly decent grasp, but they are paying for it. So chances are they are probably going to do the homework too. Whenever you are invested in something, it matters to you. I know it sounds like, wow, this is a sudden revelation from above. What is it? When I'm invested in something, it matters. Yes, when I'm invested in something, it matters to me. Whenever I've spent money, if I spent time, if I spent effort into something, then I care about the outcome and I'm involved in it. If I'm not invested, if I don't have time or sweat or anything into whatever this is, then the outcome doesn't matter that too much to me. It really doesn't. And my enthusiasm is not that high. Most of the kids that are currently in our public school system right now don't want to be there. And if they don't want to be there, then they're not only not getting an education themselves, but they're contributing to the other students around them that would want to be there. They're contributing to them not getting an education. So the solution, of course, is to allow the market to settle this. The students that don't want an education, that aren't willing to invest, are not going to get one. Meow. But as a result, the public is not being threatened with violence unless they pay for the students that don't want to be there in the first place to disrupt it for everybody who does. Mary says, I think that's why my parents wanted me to go to college or VOTEC. That's the problem I had with high school. You're not really getting the kind of education that you need in our educational institutions. they're pushing. Jack Spirko was talking with a couple educators earlier today um, on his show, Survival Podcast. Worth a watch if you have not seen it before. But he was also talking about the deplorable situation with the educational system, and really people are not invested in it. The students are being pushed at all levels to go pursue a 4-year college degree, pursue a college degree. You're going to have so many opportunities to if you pursue a college degree, and it is true that there are a lot of employers that have college degree as one of the prerequisites for the job. How the college degree actually does anything at all for the employer, I don't know, because they're going to have to train this employee whenever they first arrive, fresh out of college. With what am I doing here? This is work, right? So when do we take lunch? They don't know anything. They're fresh out of college. They have no experience. I'd rather have somebody with experience than a college degree, or at least a person who's remotely intelligent that I can train. I don't care what kind of piece of paper you've got. The paper doesn't tell me how smart you are. It just tells me that you were somebody who's willing to spend a lot of money on a degree that you don't really need to do the job that you're doing. That actually tells me that you're probably not intelligent enough to work for me. Oh, Andrew Carnegie libraries have been a godsend for many communities, and they were real philanthropists. Once upon a time, we had real philanthropists. There were not programs. There was not government paid for education. There were endowments to universities by people that were in industry that needed skilled employees, that had the skills that they were going to get from the universities. That's why they gave them the endowments and said, look, I am going to invest in my future because I'm a businessman and I know that I need competent employees to come work for me. And the only way I'm going to get them is if I can train them. So I've got this population over here that's somewhere nearby with the factory where I'm going to have these people employed, or the office where I'm going to have them employed. I'm going to go around to the schools. I'm going to look for bright students, or I'm going to send somebody around to the schools to look for the bright students. We're going to give them scholarships so they can go to college, so they can get the skills specifically, technically, for the jobs that I want to hire them for. Because I'm really, really interested in making sure that my next crop of employees that come into the business are competent and able to do the job well, maybe better than the last group that came in. It's in my best interest, my self-interest, to do this philanthropical thing. See, this is how it works, right? Philanthropy is in the self-interest of the person that's spending the money, because they get to create this change in the world that they want to see. They get to create this area where we have people that have culture because they can go and listen to the Philharmonic, or come and visit the museums and look at the art, or any number of other things. And the people that were philanthropists, and we had a great number of them here in Tulsa as well, that left endowments for the arts and for other things here around the city, and with institutions, set up trusts for various functions that will keep on going for years and years and years, maybe even hundreds of years after they're gone. That's pretty impressive, and it only happens whenever people have the freedom to do these things. You have to have freedom. If you don't have the freedom to do these things, if somebody's coming along and putting restrictions on you, reaching into your pocket, pulling that money out of your pocket before you can do anything with it, and taking it and going, well, I'm going to spend it over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, over here. And here's a little bit for the little people. Look, see, little people, we're helping you. Here's a little scrap. There you go. Vote for me. It's not working. It's even worse in the modern era, because of the way money is, pardon me, kitty, because of the way money is created and transferred in the modern era. Once you learn about fractional reserve banking, I'm not going to get into that, but once you learn about it, your eyes are open to go, whoa, hang on a second here. So whenever these banks are loaning money, they don't actually have the money to loan it. It comes into creation when they loan the money. So the money supply is always being inflated. More money is out there, but the number of goods and services have now changed. So you have more money chasing the same number of goods and services, as well as the cost of goods and services do. It goes up. This wouldn't be too big of a problem, except We have people who are actually poor that don't have much money. And if you don't have much money, when the cost of goods and services go up, it hurts, and it hurts a lot. So when we have governments come along and say, we're going to provide you, poor people, with this supplemental nutritional assistance program, we're going to call it SNAP. That sounds nice. We're going to give you a card, just like a credit card, and you're going to scan it in the supermarket, just like you'd scan your credit card whenever you go to the supermarket to buy groceries, so you won't be embarrassed that you're getting charity. Here you go. And then the politicians count their success based upon the number of new people that enroll in this new supplemental nutrition assistance program, SNAP, and go, wow, we did a good job. We got all of these people this assistance. Only there's this big problem. It's because the government doesn't have a big stack of money that it's paying out to the vendors whenever they use those SNAP cards. It's not taking stacks of actual ready cash. And look, they're not reaching into the Treasury Department going, okay, we had this cash set back. We didn't know what we were going to use it on, but apparently you're using the SNAP program. So we're going to give you this money in exchange for the real goods that you gave to the people that used their SNAP card. Here's some cash. They didn't do that. What did they do? They went to the bank and said, okay, we need to write some Treasury notes to cover the SNAP program. And so they're going to write some 10-year Treasury notes. And they start popping out these Treasury notes, right? These are IOUs. IOU. They borrow the money. Whenever they borrow the money, what's happening to the monetary supply? It goes up. When the monetary goes up, that same amount of money chasing the same number of goods and services, the price of the goods and services goes up. So the poor person with the SNAP card can use it to buy groceries. But everything else that they need to live got more expensive. That card is hurting them. It's hurting them more than not having a program would hurt them. And not only is it hurting the poor people, it's hurting everybody else too. So why do we all have to suffer just so we can hurt a few poor people? That's what I want to know. Huh? We're doing things wrong. We're doing things wrong. All right. Native-born children, almost half of what it was. Cost for schools quadruple. It resulted in the most ignorant generation ever. It's sad. I even whenever I was going to public school, and I went to public school in the 1980s. Pardon me. Why? I just rubbed the side of my nose. I got boogers building up. I can't breathe. If I kind of rub the side of my nose, maybe I'll knock that snot block loose and I can actually breathe through my nose again. Anyway, so when I was going to school in the public school system, 1980s, I could tell that this was not really a prime quality educational system, because it is the public school system, and the public school system then, as it does now, even worse than now, I suppose, taught to the common denominator, to the lowest common denominator, I should say. And they have these classrooms. At that time, we were getting to the point where there are 30 students to a class. After we'd already determined that maybe 15, 16 possibly was an optimal size to be able to actually not only maintain discipline in the classroom, because students can be unruly, but also to provide the students with the one-on-one time that they needed in order to be able to academically excel. We were already well past that point, twice what we needed in a classroom to be able to provide a quality education back in the 1980s. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse since. My mother was a teacher. She was a speech therapist. Her specific capacity with her master's degree that she got in the field was helping children that had difficulty speaking, speech impediments, usually stutters, but also she worked with autism cases and things of that nature, and other learning disabilities, and in some cases where there was not sufficient learning disabled education resources available at the time. In any case, I spend an awful lot of time at school and at the school library because Mom has work to do after school is over, and I get to ride home with Mom. As a result, during my younger days, you may have noticed I have a tendency to absorb a lot of information. I was in the library every day and I read just a lot. I never stopped. I still haven't stopped. I keep it up. Now I've got the internet, and whenever I'm curious about a topic, I can go hunt and click and find out about something. Oh, wow, I just learned about something. And then I get to turn around and tell all of you about it. It's like, hey, look what I just learned today. I usually don't say, guess what I just learned today? But like, hey, did you know? And I've been doing this research for the past few months. I now come to this conclusion that this is what the case is. Let's do an experiment. So I'll go off and do an experiment. We'll come back and find out, hey, yeah, it actually works. But here's a few things that we should know if you're trying it. All right. Anyway, what I was getting around to was mom was a teacher, and of course she was a member of the teachers union. And as a young man, I wound up having to wear a coat and mittens and an extra pair of underwear and extra socks and the bread sacks, of course, around your feet, and stand out there in front of the state capitol with a sign protesting yet again for increase in salary for teachers because consistently teachers get horrible salary. Turns out the union will put the pressure on to get the money, which it will spend on the union and administration, particularly union administration. And if the teachers get part of it, like a cost of living increase, then good for them. They're lucky. And it's just a lot of corruption. It has been for a long time. And Oklahoma is not even really the worst of the states in that respect. Always good advice. How to deal with other people, because you're always going to have customers of one sort or another. Some computer programming and turn a wrench. I mean, if you can do some computer programming. Yeah, it was. I'm glad I took the time out of my day to stop and sit down and watch. I could have planted more flowers, maybe. It was also raining, so it gave me something to do while it rained. Isn't that something? Vicky said her dad was in grade school, and eighth grade education was worth more than a BA from most colleges. That's sad. Just the entire quality of education is going to just drop so badly. Some basic things that they were teaching children whenever I was in school, they don't teach anymore. Basic things in biology, basic things in physics. Really basic things. I do. I know how to write checks. I'd rather not, yeah, because I've got plastic now, right? Plastic is so easy. You just use plastic. The old McGuffey readers, huh? We had competing systems. There were some kids, depending upon whether you were in the normal mainstream class or whether you were supposed to be going through the learning disabled program. And actually, the learning disabled program had better educational tools. So I'll just tell you straight up. The LD kids had the better educational tools. They had more one-on-one time. So generally, they had an advantage, but they were learning disabled. So, giving them the advantages helped. But I got to use the same equipment. So I'm sitting there bored, of course, after school, nothing to do. I've already read the book that I picked up from the library. I thought it was going to be a little bit more substantial, but it was just okay. It was pulp. Some L. Ron Hubbard thing, right? Something you just read in an afternoon. I'm joking. It took me a weekend to get through Battlefield Earth. That was 8, and I had chores. So we had the speed reading machine there, and this had little magnetized cars. There was a magnetic strip, like how old are you people? Um, I have to ask this question because I'm getting ready to describe technology that does not exist anymore, and there isn't even really an equivalent to it anymore. Um, okay, so these were index cards that were a little bit longer than they were wide, or like this, right? Not like that, and they'd have written on them a phrase, like a sentence, usually, or maybe even a two sentences, a small paragraph, whatever it was. They'd have that written there, and you put the thing in, and depending upon the speed that you run it through the machine, there's a little motor. They'll carry this card with a magnetic strip on it through a machine. Well, okay, yeah, there's magnetic strip on credit cards, right? Okay, similar thing. It's a magnetic strip. The magnetic media is used to hold a digital information. That digital information is interpreted back out into sound whenever it passes through the machine and it's put through the speakers. So you read this magnetic thing. Actually, I don't think this one was it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it would say what it was. And the idea was the speed that it went through, you were supposed to be able to read and keep up with it. If you could read and keep up with it, they were doing good. You could turn up the speed. If you read and keep up with it, you're doing good. Turn up the speed. Read, keep up with it. Turn up the speed. And you just keep on doing it until you have it at the back setting. You put the car goes zip, 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 zip. And at this point, you're just watching the car go flying across the room because you don't really care about the fact that you've turned up the speed faster than anybody could possibly read it. But it was great training because little did we know that just a few years later, there was going to be personal computers. Guys, personal computers. Can you imagine? There was a time when there weren't laptops and PCs. People did not have computers in their houses. And I lived in that time. It was wonderful. I'll tell you what. One day I was out there on the plains taking down a bison with my bare hands, and there it was. No, that's not how I found an Apple IIc. But they did bring them into the schools. They started to set them up, and I started teaching myself how to program. I would do that during our lunch breaks, during recess, and of course before and after school because I was stuck there because mom's a teacher. All right, and we lived too far away for me to take the bus. Then one day the bus started coming, and I just hated it. It was horrible. I actually kind of liked staying around in school and just playing in the school when nobody else was around. Paper airplanes and auditoriums when nobody else is around. The best, right? You can be sitting here and perfect your design and just sail them all the way across until they go into the basket on the other side of the auditorium. It's great from the top of the bleachers because you're going to be here for hours. Teachers take extra hours to do their work, and the kids are stuck waiting. Anyway, so the computer got invented, and I was of course a little computer geek. I was into adventure games. There were little books where you choose your own adventure. I love those. We get them at the book fairs. You read along and they go, okay, turn to page 37. Oh no, I died again. Start at the beginning. Go back. Well, now we have these computers, and computers could be programmed to do something very similar to a choose your own adventure game. They were called, text-based role-playing games. And if you were connected to the DARPANET, you could connect with other computer users in other places in the country or even in the world eventually and play multiple user domain games. These are MUDs, MUDs, multiple user domains. So MUD was what you had back in this time. Our computer monitors were pretty much monochrome green. There were some color monitors, but only the rich kids had those, and there was only like 16 colors anyway, so who cares? But if you're connected to DARPANET, you can play Colossal Cave, and if the right software has been installed and other people are connecting, you can play a multiple user game where, just like in a massively multiplying online game now, you would have other live players who are running around in the same world with you, except everything is text. So you have to be able to read really fast because it comes flying down the screen, or actually flying up the screen really, really fast, to the point where maybe after all the action's done, you might stop, go back, scroll up, and figure out what in the world it was that just killed you. But at the same time, all the text is coming in rapid fire. You're sitting here at your keyboard tapping away at the keyboard. Clickety clack, clickety clack, clickety clack. Okay, we killed that orc. Clickety clack, clickety. The giant's attacking. Oh no! And we're gonna cast a fireball. Oh shoot! I just incinerated my party with a fireball. Sorry about that. They're now attacking me. I'm gonna cast teleport. Take myself out of the dungeon. Poof. Okay, I'm out. You're like, why did you do that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It was a triggers because you could program your multiple user domain client to have automatic responses based upon things that appeared in text on the screen. And occasionally, if somebody knew what your trigger was, they might say in global chat, say whatever that catchphrase was that would trigger your animation or your automation to take off and start running your character without you doing any input. That was always fun. But mostly it's a bunch of geeks and programmers on there, and they'll do stuff like that just for laughs. Why was I talking about this? Oh yeah, speed reading. It used to be a real skill with I guess some sort of value. Nowadays, you just look at the screen and the graphics are perfect. You can just step into the into the game and be there. I can hardly imagine what it's going to be like in another 20 or 30 years. Let's see. Self-checkout lines for people with credit cards. Oh yeah. Why should I have to pay an employee to check out this person's groceries when I can make them come through and pay for it themselves? What's the degeneration of the place that has no walls for sale, huh? I don't shop there anymore. I never did like the self-checkouts. I thought that was a horrible thing to do to a community. Get them suckered in with all the jobs that you're going to bring, and then get rid of the jobs by introducing automation. Big Sanch doesn't appreciate the scripts, cursive, the fancy writing is not being taught in school. Well, another thing that makes documents unreadable, and I go around and around with Mary about this all the time, is changes in the language. And I keep on insisting that we resist changes to the English language with all strenuousness, because eventually our time-honored literature and our very important documents will become illegible, or the meanings will have become altered to the point that their intent will be lost upon future generations if we allow the language to change. And that's why I don't like the fact that in chat right now, people are limited to the number of characters they can type. It's hard to get a complete and full thought or idea out in a limited amount of text. If I'm talking face to face to a person, I have a lot of ways to communicate other than just the words that I'm using. I'm using micro expressions with my eyes, the way I move my hands. The tone of voice that I'm using will tell you a lot of things about whether I'm teasing, or I'm being pessimistic, or maybe I'm really trying to goad you and get your goat a little bit somehow with the tone of voice I'm using. But a text message doesn't convey tone. It doesn't convey tone. It doesn't convey facial expression. It doesn't convey gestures. It conveys none of these things. So with a very limited number of characters that you can use for a text message, you have to try to get a complete thought out, and you have to include whatever disambiguation that you need to get in there so the person receiving your message doesn't get the wrong message. And so we start getting shorthand and coming up with ways that we can get more into those messages, hopefully to avoid problems, but ultimately not so much, because then we're sitting here going, well, I don't really understand what your abbreviation there means. What is that? Oh, okay. That's what that means. All right. Now I know. Well, that'll work for a while, but whenever you keep on adding on new abbreviations, whenever you keep on putting in shortcuts for communication, to the point where I could say, text a message to someone, say, hey, I'm planning on going down to the river this weekend. Do you want to hook up when we're there? That message, maybe to me just means we're both going to be in the same general area. Do you want to meet up and do some fun stuff? Go fishing, maybe break out the inner tubes, have a few beers, play some cards, whatever. Who knows? But to somebody else, that term hookup now has a very distinctive meaning that's entirely different. Um, what if the person thinks that that's what they're getting together for, and the other person thinks that they just mean hang out and have fun? It can lead to a lot of disappointment and potentially hazardous situations if things go awry and people aren't very mature. It's just erosion of the language, erosion of the culture. Things just fall apart. My golly, nobody speaks the same English that Chaucer wrote back in the day. Mary says she can barely read the Declaration of Independence. Do I have a copy of it right here within reach? I think I moved it on to the other shelf. It got. I had it up on the wall. It was one of those decorative ones from wall builders. It has the parchment look to it, the aged parchment look to it. So it kind of looks like an old document. And I had it up on the wall with some of that sticky gum stuff, and it came off and got on the floor, and I think my guitar fell over and ripped it. It was horrible. So now it's just moved up onto the shelf, and I don't look at the Declaration of Independence every day anymore. Where's the pity? Fortunately, we do know what it says. There we go. Heterodox saying Wells Fargo and Bank of America, Mary, administer the EBT program. They get 25% of the total program cost. So not only does the money get created out of thin air, but they get a large fat, very very fat uh, check in exchange for providing the service of creating the money out of thin air to cause the poor people to suffer under the guise of helping them. That creates inflation. That's it. There we go. Straight Kitten saying so-called affordable housing is subsidizing landlords. That's right. If I can be guaranteed that I am going to get paid a certain amount of money, regardless of whether I provide a good quality service or not, where is my incentive to provide a good quality service? It just went out the window, right? It went out the window because somebody's covering that cost and it's not the tenant. If it's the tenant covering the cost, the tenant says, yeah, I don't like the rat problem here. I, I don't like the roach problem here. I don't like the noise problem here. I don't like the gang problem here. I've had enough. Me and my kids are moving someplace where we don't have these problems and probably don't have to pay as much in rent. Bye. And everybody would have to go, wait. We can work on these problems. I don't want to lose the money. But as long as there's another person willing to have someone else pay their bills for them, ready to move into the apartment complex as soon as this was gone, before we've even bothered to, actually properly clean the place. Don't worry, we're going to charge you the deposit fee anyway. Um, where's the incentive to provide good service? Where's the incentive to provide safe and secure housing in subsidized housing? It's not there. There's no incentive. The idea with having single payer healthcare also horrible idea, worst idea ever. Should get rid of it. Should get rid of it entirely. Because as long as there's a third party willing to pay for something, the incentive to lower the price or provide better quality service for that price isn't there. So if it's the government footing the bill, there is nothing that's going to cause those prices at the hospital to go down. Now, if there isn't somebody that's going to pay the bills, unless the customer, the client, the person that's going to the hospital comes up with the money to pay the bills, the incentive is on the hospital to provide the quality service that they can, the best quality service they can, as inexpensively as they can, or at a value, because it does not pay them if their customers can't pay the bills or won't pay the bills. If you go completely broke trying to pay a bill, you're probably not going to pay. You're just going to claim file for bankruptcy and walk away, right? That's typically the way it winds up happening. Catastrophic injury, major hospital bill. They treated you. Here's the bill. Can't afford to pay it. File bankruptcy. Hospital doesn't benefit this way. It's not good for them. But hospitals didn't used to be run as for-profit entities. Hospitals, once upon a time, not too long ago, were run as charitable institutions. Churches operated them. Community charitable organizations operated them. Philanthropists gave endowments to operate them. And yes, they did charge to a certain extent. If you had the money and you wanted to be, given some preferential treatment at the hospital, you could buy preferential treatment at a hospital. But as far as the basic care that everyone got, that was covered from the charitable operations of the institution. Because people had money to spend on charities, because they weren't being robbed constantly from every angle. The constant robbery of the American people has really destroyed the sentiment that we have for altruism and charity. What before we would take pride in digging into our own pockets to do, where we could help take care of the people in our community that needed help, that we could put shoes on the feet of poor children, or provide them with some help, a roof over their head if they needed clothes on their backs, medicine if they were in dire straits. We could take pride in doing that as a community because we did that for our own. We were providing for our community. But whenever the money is taken from us, sometimes before we even see it, and it's spent, squandered, wasted on weapons for Nazis in Ukraine, for example, or turtle bridges underneath highways that connect crumbling bridges, or turtle tunnels under highways that connect crumbling bridges, that sort of thing. Yeah, it doesn't make us feel good. It doesn't make us feel good to have our treasures stolen from us, to have our time wasted. Even. Imagine this one. Every 4 years we have somebody coming, hey, we're going to make everything good for you. Or at least we're going to be better than the other guy. And we have to spend time. We have to spend time and money trying to get the lesser of two evils elected. It's still evil. It's bad. We know it's bad. If we had any common sense, we'd walk away and say, no, I'm not going to support this. Well, what if the worst guy gets elected? Well, then the worst guy gets elected. But as long as we keep on voting for the lesser of two evils, nothing's going to get better. Because all we're doing is teaching the politicians that we will accept what they're shoveling. We'll eat it up. Until we stand up, spit it out, and say no more, they're going to keep shoveling it. There's no getting out of it. You can't elect better people to fix the fundamental problems with the system. Could be. It could be. And sometimes I'm getting more data coming in that I can process, and I have to go kind of like rock back and forth a little bit and bang my head against the wall. Did you guys ever see that movie Johnny Mnemonic with Keanu Reeves and the Dina Meyer? I remembered her name, and of course Henry Rollins. Can't forget Rollins. Rollins really made that film. There was a syndrome that the people suffered from called NAS, or nerve attenuation syndrome. And Rollins' character, who's a doctor, which is kind of funny. So here's Rollins, and he looks like a skinhead, buff, like he just got out of the prison yard workout, and he's a doctor. But Rollins is like that. He's very intelligent and very very turned on. He's on all the time whenever he's in front of a camera. In any case, he says the NES, the nerve attenuation syndrome, it's caused by information overload. There's too much data coming in. People can't process, and it causes them to shut down. And this is a fictional story. It's a fictional disease, but yeah, it does feel that way sometimes. That we're just getting too much data, way too much data, and it's not even useful data. A lot of times, it's just junk, just junk. If you get to TikTok and you start scrolling TikTok, or you get on YouTube Shorts, you start scrolling YouTube Shorts, you can have minutes go by. If you're not careful, hour go by. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I've been sitting here and I've been consuming nothing but junk data. It's all junk data. Junk data, junk data, junk data, junk data, junk data, junk data. Nothing but junk data. And I'm just putting this garbage in my head. I could be doing something useful. I could be out there planting pretty flowers or talking to interesting people or doing something productive. But instead, I'm just sitting here and I'm absorbing junk data. It does me no good. That's a nice phrase. Education is an atmosphere. Or more importantly, human beings are going to learn. They're going to learn one way or the other. It's kind of like, and I mentioned this also in Spirit Coast podcast earlier today. It's kind of like whenever you go out and you're planting cover crops. I've disturbed the soil. I removed the grass that was there. I put some things in, but they haven't come up yet. And the area that I've just removed all this material, all the grass and everything, something is going to come in here and something is going to grow. It may be Bermuda grass. It might be that purple dead nettle that I kind of like. One of these days, I want to get some Claytonia siberica, which is kind of like a spring beauty with pink flowers. Very, very pretty. But I want to get that after we have some more shade in here. In any case, if you don't choose what it is that you're going to have fill the niches in your garden, and this, you can use garden here metaphorically, the literal physical garden that you grow your food in, or the way you arrange your life, the way you arrange the world around you, the way you set up systems and things to allow you to do the things that you do in life, your garden, your business. Where was I at? I'm just spacing off here. I was getting on to something, and I've completely and totally lost my train of thought. Do I need to go back and watch my own stuff to figure out what I was talking about? Mary says she still has a speech impediment. All right. The way you raise your life is your garden, and everyone should be tending their own garden. If you are busy tending your garden, do you have time to interfere with somebody else's? Typically, no. If you're busy tending your garden, do you have your needs of life satisfied? Hopefully, yes. It's sort of built into the project. If everyone tends their own garden, we don't have time for mischief, and the things that we need are taken care of. But this is the old way of doing things. We know so much better now, right? Garbage day, eating up bandwidth. And there's so much of it. They're taking away writing now too. I hadn't heard about that, Jeannie. I know about the kids teaching the kids transgender stuff and all the fake stuff. It's weird. Yeah. I've thought about doing this, and maybe you guys would like it. I'm thinking about going out there, waiting a day or two, and not collecting any eggs from the ducks, because I've noticed that I've got at least two of our hens that get really broody. If I don't collect those eggs by afternoon, they are going to be sitting on them, and they're going to be building a clutch, and they're going to be sitting on them. And the problem is, I've got a dozen hens, but I don't have any drakes. So they can sit on those eggs all day long. They can sit on them for a month at a time. They can get themselves half starved to death, not going out and foraging and eating food and doing the things that they should be doing, and sitting on those eggs instead. And they are still not going to hatch out any little ducklings. So I'm thinking about sitting down and giving the broody hens the lecture on why it is that biology is against them, even though they identify as potential mothers of ducklings. Since there are no drakes, the eggs that they are sitting on will not hatch. And I'll have to break it down for them and explain it to them in very, very simple language that even a duck can understand. And be prepared for the comments of the people telling me that it is pointless for me to try to explain this to the ducks, because although a person can understand it, the ducks certainly can't. Proving that obviously a person can understand it. Okay. I'm getting dry throat here. Oh, yeah. Teachers go for the doctorates. Yeah, watch out for those doctorates, though. If there is a limited number of doctorates in a particular field, then that field will draw upon those doctorates almost extensively to generate whatever data they're going to generate. And sometimes you have doctorates of doctors like B.F. Skinner that came up with interesting ideas about behavior modification and how you should go about educating that I had to endure. That was not fun. B.F. Skinner was the guy that Joseph Stalin would have looked up to whenever he walks out on stage with a chicken, plucks all of its feathers off, tortures the poor bird, sets it down, hands it some corn, and then has it follow him around, because now, after having completely and totally demoralized it and then gave it food that it needed, the bird has nothing except to trust the person that gives them food and has taken away everything else. B.F. Skinner taught that human beings could be trained in the same way that animals could be trained. Yeah, if you want to make axe murders, B.F. Skinner. it doesn't work on real live people very well. All right. Mickey says, wasn't allowed to learn to read until first grade. By Christmas that year, I was reading at college level. By fourth grade, I was so nearsighted, I made Mr. Riku look farsighted. I tell you what, I hit the ground running with reading. I was, let's see, I think five or six, going in, I think, let's see, my birthday is June 27th, so I get my birthday after the school year is out. And I believe I started in kindergarten at 5. So kindergarten was over. I turned 6. First grade came on. So I'm 6 years old, first grade. And we had those the McGuffey readers. Dick and Jane books. We had those. And we were doing 2 competing versions of teaching reading at the time. There was a trial program going through when I was going through with workbooks and everything, teaching phonics, learning to read and pronounce words phonetically. And then, of course, back in the LD lab, there was still the see it and say it, flashcards and everything else. So I was exposed to both forms of education for reading. I think phonics probably is the best way to do it. The English language is not really as well adapted to phonetic teaching phonetic reading as maybe some other languages are, but it's still doable. The rules for pronunciation for the English language, once you've got them down, you can phonetically spell just about everything. At least just sound it out and go, do I know what this word is? Have I heard this word before? Oh yeah, I know what this word is. And you're off to the races. Sorry, Kitty. I didn't mean to kick you. What? Wow. But I got introduced to reading very early on. Grandmother read The Hobbit to me, and then I was informed that there were other books, and I wanted those stories, of course, because I love stories. And I was informed that I could read those stories for myself. And so I became very, very highly motivated to go learn to read so I could read those stories for myself because somebody had given me a little sample. And now I had the desire for that information, the desire for the knowledge, but they weren't just going to give the story to me. I was going to have to learn how to go get it for myself. Because I learned how to go get it for myself, I value that education much, much more than if somebody just said, here's the rules for reading. We're going to teach you how to do arithmetic now. We're going to teach you science. We're going to teach you about biology. We're going to teach you about this thing. If somebody's just handing this to you and you have no interest, it's I know it's got to be discouraging for teachers to be trying to teach students that have no interest in what they're trying to teach. Um, and part of that is that standardized education. But in any case, we've been doing these things around for so long. Saying YouTube can teach you how to fix your car, plant a garden, preserve food, forage, etc. All wonderful skills. I mean, this YouTube is great. It's absolutely great. For teaching skills, but it's good for connecting with community. It's good for talking with other people, exchanging ideas, um, collaborating, and coming up with new innovations and new thoughts, new ideas. For example, these cannas that we've got in this picture right behind me. Originated in South America, traveled all over the world. Now I've got them growing in my garden. I combine those along with dahlias, along with Hemerocallis full of the daylily, and these tubers and root vegetables. Whenever they sprout, they produce little sprouts early in the spring, or you can force them to sprout indoors by taking those roots, putting them in a clear tub with peat moss, moistened peat moss, and putting them in a windowsill where the sun can get to them. They'll start to grow sprouts. If you had them planted in the ground and you built a cold frame, you could put the cold frame up over them during the winter, and they'll start to produce those sprouts. Well, why is this important? Why do I care? The sprouts are high in protein, and one could, presuming one has about maybe 4 times the row or the row, not the row covers, 4 times the cold frames that they would need for each area that they need to grow shoots for their livestock. So you've got ducks, or you've got pigs, or you've got some kind of livestock that needs a high protein feed. You go ahead and you put your cold frame out where these roots are planted, outside in your area where your animals are going to be grazing. Wait until those shoots have come up, a week or so. Remove the cold frame, move it on down to the next spot so it can start producing shoots. You allow your animals to now come in and start foraging in the area where these shoots come out. Remember, this is a high protein feed, so you can give them fodder that's got lots of roughage and stuff like that. But you want protein for your animals. These particular flower shoots, when they first come up, are high protein. So as long as your animal will graze the shoots, you can now have a system in place where all you have to do is force those shoots to sprout even in the winter. Allow your animals to come in, graze the shoots, and then you move them back off of that to the next space over once they've eaten all those shoots. You can get away with 1 or 2 flushes of those shoots every winter, maybe even more, depending upon how well your tubers store energy throughout your growing season, to the point where you don't necessarily have to go buy feed. All you have to do is move some uh, cold frames around to provide a regular supply of fodder for your animals. And some of your greens that are able to sprout and grow in relatively cool climates are going to be able to grow in there as well. So clover is going to be able to grow in there. The purple dead nettle is pretty much ubiquitous around here. It can grow in there pretty easily. Geraniums can grow in there, and all of the stuff is things that most of your animals can eat, and several of the things that we can eat too. Anyway, So innovations. Try this out. Plant daylilies, canna lilies, dahlias, and then during the depths of winter, set up a cold frame over it to force them to put up shoots. See what you get. You can snap those off and saute them for eating yourself. Once again, they're high in protein, and yes, we can eat them too. It's kind of nice. Do you guys remember corn? Corn's nice. Corn's a wonderful plant. We like to grow it around the farms because everything can eat it. The ducks can eat it, the goats can eat it, the hogs can eat it, the people can eat it. Everything can eat corn. Well, these flower shoots are very similar. Everything can eat them. And it's that one little period of time when they actually become a protein source, is whenever they put those shoots out. The rest of the time, you're getting carbohydrates from them. Yep. Finding the learning style of every child because everybody learns differently. The things that work for me are not necessarily going to work for you, and vice versa. I don't this idea that everybody's a visual learner. Not everybody's a visual learner. I was a horrible visual learner as a child because I am blind. I take these off and I can't see. I see a blob with I can't even really tell I'm wearing a red hat without my glasses on if I'm just looking at the screen and seeing myself on the screen. But as a result, if you were expecting me to look up at the chalkboard and see the lesson plan on the chalkboard, read it and understand it, it's not that I can't read it, I just can't see it. But that's okay. I made a habit of getting the textbooks for whatever class I was in and crack it open during the first week or so and read the textbook to see what information was in there, go over the parts that I wasn't really clear on, and then whenever it came around in class, if I could kind of figure out what was going on in class, usually from the lecture, then I was okay. Sometimes I might actually have to go, I don't get this because somebody can come over here and explain this to me. But usually I could figure out what was going on from the textbook. And then after that, I bring the textbook into class with me and I get a book from the library and I put the textbook up here and the book from the library goes back here behind the textbook. And I'm sitting here and I'm reading a book from the library during class and just sort of kind of listening a little bit to what the lecture is in case the lecture mentions something that wasn't in the book. And if it was something that wasn't in the book and I had a question, I might go, and I'm still sitting here with whatever book I've gotten from the library right here. It's probably some trashy novel. Just saying. It's going to be a fantasy or sci-fi or something fun. But that's how I got through school. It was not an environment that was designed for my education. It was designed for somebody's education, but it wasn't really designed for mine. I was learning things, just not really what the school was trying to teach me. This is what I was trying to get around to. If you are not teaching your children, then somebody is going to teach them. If you are not planting something in the ground to fill a niche, whether that's the ground cover, the ground that needs covered, maybe that's an herbaceous perennial that's in the space, a vine, a shrub, understory, canopy tree, whatever it is that nature needs to have filled, whatever niche needs to be filled. Nature is going to plant something there. Something's going to grow there. The question is whether or not that's going to be a benefit to you. And if you didn't pick something out, and nature picks something out and grows that there, and you don't like it, well, you can call it a weed, but it's your own fault. You could have planted something there in that spot. You could have had the ground covered. Maybe you could have had strawberries there. Well, now you've got Bermuda grass. Maybe you could have had daylilies. Daylilies are nice. You've got Bermuda grass, or you got buffalo grass, or you've got something else there that you're having a hard time getting rid of. Conga grass over here is bad. Anyway, plant a seed, get a weed, or plant a seed or get a weed, and it works. It works in all various aspects of the garden. The garden, of course, is the world itself. We live in a garden, or at least it's supposed to look like one. Can you imagine? Everywhere you go looks like the scene that's behind me. Everywhere you go, maybe more flowers. I think more flowers would be good. Let's plant more flowers. I think, yeah, yeah. Our world garden needs more flowers. And since we have so many that are edible, it's not harsh. It's not a compromise. The practical person that I am says, I want to make sure I have enough food. I want to make sure I'm growing enough food so that I don't starve, because that's my greatest concern. But the people I care about don't starve either. I'm almost as concerned for them. And then there's a part of me that says, I would like to just look out and see something nice. I mean, I've got food, but can I get something pretty to look at? Can I get some beauty in my world? I like beauty. Beauty is good. And of course I get both. I get the food and I get the beauty. Judy's talking about Dick James. We had some of those too. It wasn't all Dick and Jane books. Like, so we had one where I eagerly read. This is first grade within the first week, and we're opening up the readers, and I'm reading the story about Merce Duck and her ducklings, because remember, phonetically I'm trying to pronounce things phonetically, and nobody had told me about this abbreviation for Mrs. with an R in it, because Mrs. phonetically does not have an R in it. So I get to this Merce Duck, and it has this weird period, which that's an abbreviation symbol, and you find that in an end of a sentence. That's obviously not the end of a sentence; it's an abbreviation. But I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm trying to pronounce it phonetically. It's MRS Duck, right? Of course, we know this is Mrs. Duck. First grade teacher doesn't correct me. I say Merce Duck the entire time that first day that we're reading, the entire time, and I am the only kid that's willing to attempt to read. And I'm killing it. I mean, everything, killing it, absolutely killing, except for this one thing, Merce Duck. And the teacher never corrected me, which is unfortunate because I was doing it wrong. You see, I was eager, I was enthusiastic, but I was doing it wrong, and I needed correction. Just like around the world today, human beings for the past few thousand years have been doing a lot of things wrong and are kind of in need of correction. But she was just so excited that I was willing to read that she wasn't going to rock the boat. If I've got one student that's reading, even if he's doing it wrong, I'm just happy one of them is willing to read. When I got home, I told my mother about Merce Duck and the story that I read. She says, Merce Duck, what's Merce Duck? And I spelled it out, MRS, with a period at the end. So that seems to be some sort of abbreviation. I'm not familiar with the word. She says, oh, that's Mrs. And at that moment, I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm so embarrassed. I spent the entire day, every single time that abbreviation came up, I was phonetically pronouncing it. Nobody corrected me. Of course, it's first grade, and probably most of the other kids have forgotten by now. But I still remember, darn it, about how the education system failed me early on in my educational career. Whenever I required correction to not be doing it wrong, they were just happy that I was participating. Oh Lord, we're all doomed. Yeah, the nerds and retards got made fun of. You don't want to be too smart in school. At least you didn't back when I was going through it. Now apparently you're allowed to be a nerd and a geek, and you're celebrated for it. And I think that's wonderful. But there's some other things that came along with the changes that aren't so great. Oh, older than I am by just a little bit. I think I'm 51 this year. Or maybe I'm 52. I don't remember. Judy's 67. That's 6 plus 7. That's 1 plus 3. That's 4. You're younger than I am. Wait a minute. Let me see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm either turning 6 or 7 this year. That's 5 plus 1 is 6. 5 plus 2 is 7. Yeah, so I'll either be 6 or 7 this year. You're just a youngster. I try not to get any older than 9. Billy, 49 tomorrow. Woohoo. Punch cards, flashcards. Yeah, flash. We have flashcards. Lots and lots of flashcards. Melody's 64. We had some Dr. Seuss books too. Oh, 49 tomorrow. I didn't even notice you were saying it was tomorrow. Yeah, happy birthday, Billy. Da, 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 da. All right. Send seeds. All right, guys. Billy, go ahead and put your address up there on the screen so everybody can see it so they'll know where to send the seeds. Where did I put them? I had a bunch of seeds over here just a moment ago. As you guys know, I sell seeds. I still have some left. The Big Horse Spotted Corn, 16 grams or 100 seeds, selling at 5 cents a seed, which may seem expensive, but they're about 10 cents a seed if you buy them from anybody else. So it's about half the price. And it's also the same price that Baker Creek was selling them once upon a time, back in 2018, 2019, before they lost the ability. Oh, that's the pink soba buckwheat that I was planting earlier today. Aren't those pretty? I showed these to you before, didn't I? I have multiple packs of these lying around. This is just the same pack that I've had on the desk that I have not done anything with for the past 2 or 3 years. Every year I open up a pack and try to do something with it. And sometimes I get them to sprout, but I have not yet managed to get one to overwinter. So hopefully this year I'll crack that barrier and get a buckwheat, perennial buckwheat that manages to get through the winter and pops up again next spring. We will see. Speed reading, Mary. Yep, that's why I was so good at text messages because I got really good at just lightning reading. Vicky remembers the computers and buildings like Telex Hill down here in Tulsa. I'm saying Telex Hill like you all know what I'm talking about. The Telex building was on, I think, Sheridan, and a little bit further south that way. And Raytheon Corporation built the mainframe that's in there, or built the mainframe that was in there. I helped to overhaul the thing. That was kind of fun. Whenever I was 7 or 8, I mean, I was very young. Maybe a little bit older than that. But my stepfather was working for Raytheon Corporation, their seismograph division, interpreting data. So whenever somebody was going out there shooting a shotgun shell into the ground with a little tire sled and then recording the bounce back on the seismograph, you take that data that they were collecting, which tells you something about the density of the layers of Earth beneath where that shock wave was being released, and he would take that and use the computer programs to extrapolate and determine whether there's a high probability of petroleum or a lower probability of petroleum in the various places that they were doing the exploration. So there's data collection in the field, and then you take the data in and they would start running it through mainframes. And at that time, yeah, they used punch cards, the old IBM punch cards, which is just a crazy way to store information too. They went from punch cards to the reel-to-reel cassette drives. These were spools about that big, 2 of them for each drive, just with a magnetic tape, and they would constantly read and write, go back and forth, back and forth. The computer room was 2 entire floors in that building. They were all separately air conditioned and just filled with these cabinets trying to read and write information in real time. It was able to store probably at least a meg or more information back in the 1980s for its random access memory, which is really impressive. I don't know how much depth of data storage the system had, but its RAM was close to a meg. And in the 80s, that was just huge, massive machine. So I'd go in there sit down and play with this mainframe computer that's connected to DARPANET. You guys ever see that movie War Games? I saw that movie, and I laughed and laughed and laughed because we got a kid trying to break in using a dial-up connection and a dialer, trying to talk to other computers that are in DARPANET. And I was sitting there on one, going, huh. And it was, or probably still is, loaded with games, because us geeky people like to make games and amuse ourselves. Anyway. Yep, multi-user dungeons, multi-user domains. That's what the MUD stands for. Yep. Text modes, dial-up party lines, black and white TV. We had black and white TV. Leather Goddesses of Phobos. Yes, I had Infocom's Leather Goddesses of Phobos on floppy disk. Yep. I've got my geek card around here somewhere. Chainmail was before D&D. That was what D&D came out of. Chainmail was a wargaming simulator. Essentially, it's rules for wargaming. It had little miniatures, and those represented the armies that we were moving around on the battlefield. And somebody somewhere along the line said, "Well, what about this soldier right here?" And started getting into specifics about what was going on with the individual units that were on the battlefield. Eventually, that sort of morphed off into the role-playing game as we know it. I do. The funky smelling purple ink copiers where you have to create the masters and then use the toner to develop the copies, and it gives you one massive headache being in the copy room with that thing. I really appreciated the photocopiers when they came out. Even though those were black and white, they made everything so much easier. Dot matrix printers, I remember those. Yeah. Vicky saying first TV show in color was Bonanza. Da, 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 da. Hey, I remember Bonanza. We had tubes in our televisions back then. Tubes. Yep. 14 kilobytes of memory. It's all anyone's ever going to need. Little did we know. Shoot. Yeah, at the height of my basic programming days, we had a machine back at home that had 512 kilobytes of random access memory, and that was a fairly decent home PC at that time. I was eyeing one that had 1024 kilobytes. That is 1024 kilobytes, because you see, I was writing programs at that time and trying to use the array function. Not only of IBM's basic program, but Apple had an array function as well. And the cool part about writing code back then, probably still, but I could sit down and I could write out a flowchart for how I wanted my program to work, and then I could interpret that flowchart into the language of the language of the programming language I was going to be writing in. And Apple Basic and IBM's Basic, regular Basic, although they did have some variations, they weren't exactly the same. They were close enough together that as long as I knew the rules for where Apple was different from IBM, I would write basically the same program for either machine, or just as easily swap out those little bits and pieces that were different. In any case, an array is a way of arranging information where if I had a box of chocolates to show it to you. You imagine you've got your box of fancy chocolates, right? And you've got all these little tiny boxes or holes where a chocolate goes into, right? This allows you to organize everything, and you can look at the diagram and go up this way and over this way, and you have this grid, say 5 across and 3 down. That's a total of 15 bits of chocolate that you've got there. Now, assuming that we have some sort of logic behind our bits of chocolate. These ones are all caramels. These ones all have nuts. These ones all have coconut. These ones all have dark chocolate, that sort of thing, right? We have some sort of logic in the way our bits are arranged. This is what an array is because each bit is slightly different, right? I come here to the point where I have these are all caramels, and I've got a line of caramels in the array, and every single step up here, which is another variable, is a component of that array. So I could have X, Y, and Z values for every designation that was maybe say in a room if I was making an adventure game. This array stores all of that information, and then I can save that. And whenever somebody is going through this dungeon or somebody's going through the adventure, when they come into a room, the variable string shows me that array, which gives me a value for north, south, east, west, up, down, as well as other temporary or possible temporary conditions that may or may not exist. And I can stack this 255 bits deep for each room that potentially is in this dungeon. All that information can be coded and then retrieved and displayed with the program that I write, but there's a big problem. You probably already figured out what the big problem is. Computers didn't have enough memory to write the programs I was writing. They didn't have enough memory to run the programs I was writing. So I was writing out programs in hard copy because I could write the code, just write in a hard copy, and I'd sit over here and I'd do the data entry whenever I got to a computer. So now instead of just reading a book in class, I'm also sitting here and I'm writing computer code in class, which is great. For whenever I got to my 8th grade class, I was in German. They started German language a year early that year, so I was like, yeah, I'm going to jump in. I got to get German, get some German. Foreign language classes, it broadened my horizons. Learn to think in different patterns. It's great. Pick up foreign languages, guys. It'll really help with your mental flexibility. But I'm sitting in class and I'm writing code, and we have our vocabulary words. So I'm writing the code that will allow the teacher to walk to the back of the room where the computer is, because every classroom now has one computer, and she can type in the vocabulary words for the week with the program that I wrote for her using arrays. This was smaller than the big one that I was trying to create for writing adventure programs. I wanted one where a user could sit down with an idea in their mind for an adventure that they wanted, a choose your own adventure that they wanted to make, and they could enter in all the information into those arrays to create the dungeon experience for somebody else to come and enjoy. Sometime later, somebody came up with this thing called Minecraft that was kind of like a graphic version of the same thing. Computers had kind of improved a little bit in between then and then. But now my German teacher can go back. She could write in the vocabulary words, boop, 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 and save them. And then if somebody wants study time to use the computer for study time, all they have to do is say, Cross Signature, can I use the computer for study time, practice vocabulary words? And they could go back there and it would generate automatically a quiz on the vocabulary words. So you get your spelling, your vocabulary, sentence structure, everything else. I wrote the computer program that would teach you how to expand your language vocabulary. Yay! It's an educational tool. And just remember, this is 8th grade, so I'm 6 years at 1st grade. That's adds 7 years. I'm 13 at this time, writing computer programs for education. And this is, of course, the year that the Space Shuttle Challenger blows up. We were in German class when it happened. I was in the middle of doing my programming whenever it happened, and the TV was on in the room when it happened. So that's how I remember. That's how I remember the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. In German class, writing arrays, smaller ones that would actually fit in the memory of the computers that we were working with at the day. Who knows what I could do with BASIC now? I've kind of been half tempted to get a compiler and play around with it. Of course, I've since learned how to write in C++. I liked BASIC more. I don't like, well, I don't know. If I was building the entire engine, if I was building the entire program from the ground up with C, I might like it more. I don't really like having to go into some architecture somebody else put together and cobble together something that makes sense with their architecture. It's just because people do things wrong. Well, I can see from where we're at here, 2 hours into the program, I am nowhere near uh, the end of our chat. Wow, Joe came in late. I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't. I'm not going to be able to keep up with chat. Apparently, that's all there is to it. Let me catch up and see what everybody's talking about. Worcestershire here still. Drops is here with us too. Tapes and hard drives, floppies. Oh yeah. Joe's in the house. Let me see here. Oh, we got Hat Creek in here. Melody's talking about something that sounds interesting. I'm trying to find the original thread of the conversation to get into it. Okay, so we're talking about property, finding places to live. Um, have you guys checked out the Survival Tribes Network yet? SurvivalTribesNetwork.com. Um, I think that's just it, SurvivalTribesNetwork.com. Uh, Rebecca's been doing a lot of work with that site. It's a great place for you to go if you, one, have land and need people to come help you with it in a survival context. In other words, you've got the place that people can bug out to, but you're going to need some help managing because it takes a village. Or maybe you're the person that's got the skills and the ability and the willingness to contribute to a community, but you don't have any place to go. And especially in this day and age, whenever a lot of people are one piece of bad news away from being homeless, having someplace set up that you can go whenever you're in dire straits for survival purposes might be a good idea. SurvivalTribesNetwork.com is a place where you can go and hopefully find some kindred spirits and some community. All right, moving on because I read some of the other things that Melody was saying. Um, Heterodox is looking for property. 60,000. 60,000 will get some property. It won't. Well, here in flyover country, it'll get some property. If you're in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, Missouri, do we want to include Kansas? Maybe Kansas. You can get a lot of property for 60,000. I mean, it's not hundreds of acres, but you can get a spread. You can at least get enough property of decent quality that you can live on it. Heterodox is asking, are daylilies safe for sheep and goats? Daylilies are safe for sheep and goats, I think. Yeah, the daylilies are safe for sheep and goats. I was freaked out when I was little, and I'd come into the to the well house on the farm where we grew up. We had a well house. It was attached to the farmhouse, but it was a separate room. It was its own separate room, and the well house had a little extra storage space over to the side. There was a half bathroom in there, just a toilet and a sink that we very rarely ever used for, well, really anything. Sometimes if we were coming in and our hands were muddy, we'd stop off at that sink and wash up if we hadn't already used a garden hose outside previously. Preferably, used the garden house outside previously. We would come into the well house, and the well house had the well that was built around the farm back during the McKinley administration when it was built as a log cabin. The log cabin's still there. Well, was still there whenever the house still stood. Uh, the walls were about 14 or 16 inches thick. The logs were inside the walls for the dining room. I've got nose crud again. All right. The log cabin formed the walls of the dining room, and then they built the rest of the house around it, 4 bedrooms altogether, plus the dining room, living room, kitchen, well house, of course, attic space, other stuff. No, there was no basement in that particular house, but the well was about maybe 8 to 10 foot across, lined with stone. So it was a full size well, the kind that at one time you would lower a bucket down on a windlass, fill up the bucket, crank the bucket back up. It's that kind of well. But at some point in the past, somebody had gone down about 30 foot down. It was a very deep well, about 30 foot down there, and put a platform, and then about another 10 or 15 feet below that was where the water table was. And so the platform that was midway down was where the pump was, and the pump would pump the water from right there and lift it up. Instead of drawing the water up from below, it was pushing it up. It was drawing it up from just a little bit below and then pushing it the rest of the way up to the house. And that's how we got our water. I don't know why I was talking about that. I'm spacing again. All right. Well, he used to go to the state forest to enjoy the country, and now is in a gorgeous forest with incredible views. Yeah, there's work involved with living in the country, but there's work involved with living anywhere. The question is, uh, whenever you do that work, is it satisfying? Is it fulfilling? Whenever you do that work, do you feel good or do you feel miserable? And if you're working in one of these places with the fluorescent light overhead in the city, and you're just grinding away at a job that you hate, sure, you're making ends meet, but if you're miserable, is it really worth it? Maybe a little dirt and honest work might be just the thing that you need to have a more fulfilling life. We don't all have to run around with the latest fashions and the latest gadgets. Country life is very attractive. It's peaceful. It's quiet. You can live there. Uh, Less stress. Oh, less stress. Better health. More freedom. All right. Morel should be popping this weekend, he's saying. Well, we'll see. I might take a walk and see if I can find any. We've got plenty of elms in the green band over here next to us. It's just I've never found any morels over there. All right. Does the land have to be flat and farmable? Personally, if it was me, I would actually prefer a bit of a grade. And rocks don't bother me much. Rocks are a resource. You dig out rocks, you build a retaining wall. Here on flat land, if I want a retaining wall, I have to get concrete or use landscaping timbers. I like concrete; it doesn't rot. Let's see. No, I got this 600 down. Well, 400 down. 400 down. The Forest Edge was the name of a multiple user domain that I used to play. Yeah. So the question is, how are the politics in Tennessee shifting? Is it like better or worse? Here in Oklahoma, they seem to be tending towards more liberty, which is great. Uh, for a long time, we had very restrictive laws regarding the purchase of alcoholic beverages, times that the liquor stores could be open, including days. They didn't allow you to purchase alcohol on Sunday, although a person could still go to the bar and get a drink, which I thought was kind of weird. I mean, on Sunday, if you wanted to get a drink, you would have to leave home, travel to a bar, imbibe your alcoholic beverage at the bar. Presumably, you imbibed enough alcoholic beverage to have the desired effect. You are now inebriated, and now you have to come home from the bar. So either you're being safe and taking a bus or a cab or having a friend drive you, or you're driving while intoxicated while you're on the road with everybody who just went to church. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, they finally changed that, and now the liquor stores can be open on Sundays. So if you want to drink, you can stop by the liquor store, pick it up, go home, close the door, have your beverage, and if you get sloshed, you're already home. You don't have to drive anywhere. A lot safer for everyone. And all they had to do was just remove a stupid law. And we're removing more stupid laws, so that's good. Uh, Hopefully, we don't fall into the habit of starting to add them. Oh my goodness! I was up at 4 o'clock this morning. So, wow. Oh, so I've been up for 18 hours. Okay, that's why I'm a little bit here. Yeah, troubles. Dog had cancer. Her roof had hail damage. We wound up busting an outdoor faucet, and the old original faucet in the bathtub started to leak. So we had to call out a plumber. I've got the invoice for it right over here. $715. Good Lord, that's a lot of money. But I couldn't do that plumbing job myself. They had iron to iron pipe connections there. They had to get in there and take everything out the old fashioned way with, you know, grinding wheels and cutting torches. It was a mess. But they didn't build this house with the idea that somebody was going to need to come by later on and service it. They just said, here you go. It's a disposable house. Use it and then throw it away. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm getting tired. I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night, guys. Ah, I'm trying to catch up with the chat. I just can't. Yeah, Kansas. No, don't go to Kansas. Don't go to Kansas. There's nothing in Kansas. Wait, Vicky says she's going to be buying 7.5 acres with a house for 20,000 review. Is that like adjacent to what you already got? You know, buy another 7.5 acres. Actually, 7.5 at 20. What is that? 20,000 divided by. So little over 22,600 per acre. It's not bad. It's not bad these days. And it's Ozarks on a ravine bottom. Um, you dig down, you're going to hit water most of the time. Just about everywhere. Oh my god. 500 miles of corn end to end. We don't need that much corn. Corn's wonderful, but we don't need that much. It's not the best crop everywhere all the time. See, that's the thing. there are better crops that we could grow for various reasons. It's just that incentive to grow corn is there, and people are growing corn. They shouldn't be growing corn. Let me see. That 20,000 property. I've seen a few like that. The One of the first jobs I had was working for a nursery in Taney County, and they had, they gotten the deal on the property, but it was trashed out. So my main job wasn't even taking care of plants. It was running around gathering up the piles of trash and moving them in and consolidating them so they could clean the place up, which is great work for energetic young people that are willing to work for $2.50 an hour. I think it was just $2 an hour. Rode my bicycle there. I'm sorry, Arkansas is closed. You'll have to pick another state. Vicky's already there. Oh my goodness. Stop incineration. That's a good topic. We've gotten rid of quite a few that way. All right. Okay. Yeah. Preventive buying. Let's talk with Brennan about that earlier. But now, over time, you'll wind up with people that just wind up buying up all the property around, even though they don't really need it themselves, just so they can keep other people from moving in, because other people, you don't know what you're going to get whenever you get neighbors, and you can't do anything about it once you've got them. If they're good neighbors, it's great. It's great to have good neighbors. I love having good neighbors. If they're not good neighbors, well, I suppose you could shoot them, but you can't get away with it. Hopefully, although I don't think we're going to have the mountains back here in the background, but yeah, hopefully we'll have something a bit like a tropical rainforest. Um, if I can't stop people from cutting down the ones that exist, maybe I can sell people on the idea of let's grow our own. And so if we can grow new forests to replace the ones that we've lost, we'll be doing okay. Anyway, 2 hours plus. I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed, guys. Thanks for joining me tonight. As always, I hope you found the video informative or entertaining. If you did, you know what to do. I will catch you next time. Until then, get out there and get growing some daylilies or some cannas or some dahlias or some corn or whatever you can. Get some roots in the ground. It's going to be a crazy year. I'll catch you next time. Good night.